Guys, so Brendan Fernando, right? Now, Brendan Fernando is a dog. Straight facts. Brendan Fernando is a dog. Straight facts, right? Let's be real from the jump. Even if he wasn't a dog, the actions that he did were putrid. But his actions are putrid, and he did tell, right? So, Brendan Fernando first comes to jail for a putrid crime, and we all know it. Putrid. When he comes to jail, and he finally does tell on his Cowie, which is his cousin, Vesta, they get life. Now, it comes out whilst he's at court that Brendan Fernando was the informant, right? And it comes out. So as soon as they come back from court one day and the whole world knows that he's an informant, Vesta tells everybody, do not touch Brendan. Why? Because Vesta's nan made Vesta promise her, while I'm alive, you will not kill him. So Vesta's nan had 2 children, a son and a daughter. She had more, but this is how Vesta and Brendan become first cousins. Vesta's dad and Brendan's mum were brother and sister, right? So they share the same nan. So the nan said, listen, I don't want you to touch him. I know he fucked up, but you can't touch him. It's your cousin. You got to look after him in prison, right? So Vesta just agreed not to look after him, but just to make sure no one touched him, yeah? In 1997, Brendan Fernando G'd up and got in the ear of another brother who was only doing 3 years, who's just been released now after doing 30 years, to murder another inmate. So he had someone to do life with, right? The other inmate, I don't want to mention his name, he ends up killing another bloke at Goulburn, all right? Brendan said, I will help you. When the murder went down, Brendan left this bloke with it. So this other bloke ends up killing another bloke. Brendan said he was going to jump in. He doesn't, right? This bloke gets caught for this murder. He's only doing 3 years. He ends up he gets 14 years for this murder. In the process, this bloke also gets involved in a riot at Goulburn and gets another 13, 14 years. Ends up doing 30 years, right? When Brendan gets murdered, the riot hasn't happened yet. So he ends up doing this Brendan murder, then gets involved in the riot, then goes to Supermax for 10 years, 12 years, right? So what happens is Brendan gets tipped to Lithgow. So me, Vesta Fernando, Ron Priestley, and a couple of Dougie Johnson and a couple other brothers are all in Segro. We're in Segro at Goulburn. Pete Buchanan, Dougie Johnson, and a couple other brothers at the time were in Segro at Lithgow. So what they used to do back in the day was they would transfer some trumps from each jail and swap them over, so you could never have so many chiefs in one prison. So one morning, I get woken up at 2 a.m. by the squad, and they said, you're on escort. I was in Segro at the time, right? They said, you're on escort. I said, what the fuck's going on? They said, you're on escort by the order of the commissioner. You're on your way to Lithgow. I said, what the fuck? They said, yeah, get up. Your stuff will be packed tomorrow. You're going now. I jump in the back of a 4-wheel drive. When I get in the 4-wheel drive, 2 more people jump in. Vesta Fernando and Ron Priestley. We're on our way to Lithgow. When we get to Lithgow, Dougie Johnson, Pete Buchanan, and there was another brother there, I forget his name, but he was a Trump at the time as well. I forget his name. They were at Lithgow, and they were getting transported by the same squad back to Goulburn, right? So when we get off the truck, off the 4-wheel drive, the squad give the paperwork to the reception room and said, listen, we picked them up from the MPU and the HSU. They're to be housed in Segro. They said, yeah, all right, sweet, no worries, all good. We're now in the cells at Lithgow, right? 2 hours goes by, and then all these pippers are there. And they're saying, there's no paperwork to hold it. And wait, this is a good story to lead into corrective services being shifty and corrupt, because when I tell you what happened, now I just think about it, corrective services set this up. 100% they set this up, because Ron Priestley got G'd up by Brendan Fernando, and Vesta Fernando got told on by Brendan Fernando, right? So when we get to the jail, all these peepers are looking at our paperwork and they're saying there's no Segro order here. We cannot hold them in Segro. I cannot hold them in Segro without an order. There is no order. The order states once they leave Goulburn Correctional Centre, the segregation order expires immediately. So that means we were held on good order and discipline of the jail. So when you're held on a good order and discipline of the jail order, that means whilst you're at that jail, you will be held in Segro, because if you're out in the main, the security of the jail is at risk. So they call it good order and discipline. So in other words, we're holding you in Segro because if you're outside in the main, you have our security will be at threat while you're here. So we leave Goulburn, we come to Lithgow. They have no Segro order. They know that Brendan Fernando has NAs on both these inmates. They know that. There's paperwork stating that Brendan Fernando cannot associate with Ron Priestley and Vesta Fernando. That paperwork is not there. There's no Segro order and there is no NA paperwork. Where do you think the boys go? Straight to the wing next to Brendan Fernando. Straight up to B-Pod. Straight to B-Pod. Now, right, when we come out the next morning, because we get there before let go. We get there before let go, bro. We get out at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. Brendan Fernando goes to work. He only hears that Ron Priestley and Vesta's here. He doesn't see him. He goes to work at 7 in the morning or whatever, 8 in the morning. Everyone's like, bruh, what the fuck? Like, Ron and Vesta's here. Everyone knows the story. Everyone knows the drama between these three people. Everyone knows, right? When Brendan comes back from work, he comes and talks to them. And the boys talk to him like, we're mates. So he kind of, over a week of the boys being there, he must have dropped his guard because he started to play games with the boys and started to like think he was sweet, you know, because he was always going to work, he was always doing his thing, going back to the wing, whatever, but he was never putting himself in a position to get got. Never put himself in a blind spot and never put himself in a position till he got got. One day he did it is the day he got got, and I'll get to that part. So, one day, the boys were sitting up against a wall near J unit, E unit, crisis unit, under the telephone box. And Brendan was walking on the outside of the tennis court back up the footpath to B-Pod. And there was a mule truck. And the mule truck was driving up the footpath, dropping mules off out the front of each wing. Brendan was walking behind the mule box, the mule truck, and he was sticking his head around the trailer, looking at the boys, like thinking he was having a joke. Like, but the boys took it as like, this cunt's starting to gig us, thinking that we're not going to do nothing, and he's starting to get very comfortable, right? After lunch, we're knocking him. They're the exact words of that conversation. Fuck, this cunt, bro, he's no good after lunch. We're killing him, right? Like, just bang, like it was after lunch, bro, we're making a sandwich, and we're going to sit down, have a coffee, and play a bit of chess. That was like, it was done that easy. Like, the decision to take someone's life was done like that, bang. And that's what prison's about. You got to understand, like, one person thinking people are let it go and I'm having a game with them. These people are thinking, keep smiling, cunt, you're about to get killed. Do you know what I mean? Like, jail's unpredictable for people that have closets. Oi, Turbs, thank you for the ice cube, bro. Yeah, jail's unpredictable for people that have closets. Simple. You just can't ever predict what day you're going to get got in jail. It's just like, that's the way it is. So what happened is Brendan had to go to the music room after lunch. Oi, Dean, bros, thank you, my bro. How are we? Long time no see, lad. Thank you for the football. I'll take that ball and I'll run it, lad. You watch me. So anyways, after lunch, there was a music room. Kai Eshe, lad, for the cutout pass. There was music, right? He went to the music room after lunch. And everyone knows about this, right? Everybody knows what happened, but these are the details that not many people know of, right? So after lunch, he goes to the music room. The boys think, you know what, it's happening, and they're using the music room. And you know why they use the music room? The music room is soundproof. They do it in front of a music teacher. The music teacher leaves. They do it in front of other inmates. They don't give a fuck, right? This bloke got some bloke 30 years. This bloke got someone life. He needs to be got. They don't care, right? When you go into the education, you have to give your ID card into the office, and the office puts it in R's, P's, F's, C's, D's, E's, or wings, depending, right? Well, when Brendan goes in, he's sweet. The boys don't go straight down there. They do their thing and they end up going down, right? Brendan knew that he was going to get knocked. Brendan knew that he was going to get knocked because when the boys entered to go and do the damage, he was playing the drums. When he jumped off the drum seat, he was sitting on a blade. So he was sitting, he had it like there, under his leg like so, like that, and he was just playing the drums, you know. When he seen the two boys come in, he knew why they were coming in that room. He knew. Like there's no way out now. The drums are up the back of this room, the door's there, and there's an auditorium. If you know Lithgow prison, oi Daniel, thank you for the roses. If you know Lithgow prison, as you come into education, you got the library, the computers, you go around to the other classrooms and art, you can go straight down past the office where you put your ID cards, straight into a basketball auditorium. Straight off the auditorium is music room, art room, classroom. There's no way out. Vesta and Tunt walk in. There's a music teacher there. There's a couple other boys down there. Not many, because they kind of knew what was about to happen. When the boys walk in, he jumps up off a blade. All right? Vesta makes the first move. Vesta stabs him in the eye. Brendan tries to stab Vesta. They get into a scuffle and they fall over each other, right? Vesta stabs him again, like in the neck and in the chest. And then my Tunt, he comes in, right? In the process, Vesta stabs Tunt in the arm because they're wrestling Brendan, you know? The music teacher leaves and takes off. He takes off. The other inmates, they leave and take off. Brendan, Vesta, and Ron are the only ones left in there. And the boys are going to work on him, right? They do the damage. They leave. As they leave, they try to get their ID cards, right? Ron gets his, but he couldn't find Vesta's. They walk off. They leave, right? In the process of them doing that, Brendan follows them out. Now Brendan's been stabbed in the eye, in the neck, in the chest, in the ear, in the chest, in the back. Like, he looks like a pincushion. Like, he knows that he's not going to survive, bro. He walks from the music room to the auditorium, up the hallway to the desk. The screw sees him and freaks, right? They now press their buzzer. The boys have just left the auditorium and the education, and they just get through the bottom gate where an officer stands. See? There's another gate. So if you know Lithgow, there's a gate that separates J unit, which is the boneyard, and education and visits. And then there's the clinic and all that there. And then there's another gate, and the jail's behind that gate. So they're very lucky that when they first left, that other people were getting that gate open because they walked through the crowd. The screws press their buzzer, they lock that gate, and now there's no movement, and you're now locked in to the murder crime scene. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you're now locked, even though you're not locked in education, you're locked in that part. You cannot deny being there because you are locked behind that gate. So you were there or thereabouts. You may not have committed it, but you are there and you're not going anywhere because there's been a murder, right? And at this time there wasn't a murder, but in 15 seconds he's going to die, right? So he comes walking out. He sees the screw sees him. The screw presses the alarm. He says to the screw, I've been stabbed. I'm not going to make it. I know I'm going to die. Vesta Fernando done it. And the screw's like, what? Just lay down, you're going to make it. And this was told to me by other inmates that were there listening to this conversation and looking at Brendan at the same time. And the screws are saying, everyone out, everyone get the fuck out, everyone get out. Squad comes running, clinics coming running. They got the defib, like they know that he's in a bad way. They start to work on Brendan in the hallway. Brendan says again, before the clinic get there, I'm dying. I know I'm dying. My cousin killed me. Vesta stabbed me. Bang. Passes out. They do their defib. The ambulance comes. They put him on a gurney. They rush him out. Bruh, he's declared dead at the jail before he leaves. He's dead. Right? Vesta and Brendan and all that make it up into the wing. We get immediately locked in. Full lockdown, like there's a jail murder. You know what happens when there's a jail murder. You get locked in for a week, probably 2. Depends how long. The actual lock-in over that murder, mate, wasn't that long because they got the boys pretty much that day, straight away. They take him straight to Segro. Well, when they go to Segro, Vesta goes to Segro, Ron goes to Segro. When they go to Segro, they don't get charged with it straight away. Police come, they do their questioning, they do their thing. Then they get charged a couple of days later, right? When they get charged and go to court, Vesta puts his hand up and said, listen, Ron Priestley had nothing to do with it. He had nothing to do with it. They do their investigation. Ron Priestley, he gets dismissed. Ron Priestley beats it. He gets dismissed. Vesta Fernando pleads guilty to his cousin's murder. Do you know what Vesta Fernando got for the murder? Vesta Fernando got 18 years concurrent. 18 years concurrent. Does anyone in the chat know what concurrent means? Concurrent means it's not accumulative. Accumulative means to be placed on top. There's no need to place anything on top for Vesta. Vesta's doing life. This was a free murder. This was a free murder. This bloke got his cousin life, got this other bloke 30 years, got G'd up, so they ocked him there, and it cost him nothing. It was a free murder, mate. Simple. Brendan Fernando was a free murder. Is that not crazy? And we all know, like, even if he was on an odd day, it was a bad crime that he come to jail for. It was a very bad crime that he come to jail for, and he went out the right way. The right result occurred that day. Simple. Like, what happened to him was deserving. Like, and I know that it's probably sad to say, but it was deserving. Like, you can't live this life, act a certain way, and then commit certain things that are of that nature and think that there's not going to be a repercussion. Like, no one lost sleep over that. No one actually mourned that. Like, at the end of the day, like, the world was done a favour. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. That's prison life, bro. Prison can take a very dark turn for people who carry closets. There's an unwritten law in jail, and we all know that. And it's don't touch old people, don't touch women, don't snake bray, and don't tell. That's it. That's unwritten law. So if you come to jail and you hear nothing, see nothing, do nothing, and you have no closets, you're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. I'm not saying you're never going to have a fight, but you're going to be all right. Your life's never really going to be in danger. But if you come to jail for breaking the unwritten rules, Jail's not a very, very safe place, you know. And I'm telling you right now, he walked around from 1994 when he got arrested, or 1992. He walked around right up to that time, knowing that this is how his jail was going to end. He walked around knowing that his jail was going to end that way.